Lorien, I'm actually going to kick off with you. I know you're passionate about a few things, but in terms of adoption, do you think, 15 years after Satoshi's paper, 10 years after these events started, do you think by this stage we would have been further along in terms of adoption? And then can you think of any use cases where you feel the adoption is like really taking off?
Yes, well, I mean, obviously, I'm very optimistic about Bitcoin, the way Satoshi devised it, but I don't believe there has been any adoption, even though there are millions of people who are investing in crypto. I don't think buying crypto is adoption. Adoption means that you're using the technology to serve a purpose. It's not just about speculating on a token. You can do that, and you can go to a casino, and you can buy poker chips, but you're not adopting poker chips. So I think that there's been a massive, since really, maybe even in the mid, like 2015, around about that stage, things started going off the rails. And I think it's because when Bitcoin was released, it coincided with the financial crisis. And everybody thought that Satoshi Nakamoto built Bitcoin because of the financial crisis. And obviously in the first transaction, he said that there was this newspaper article about banks and all that sort of thing. So the whole kind of ideology at that stage was set that this was a tool that was going to replace money. It was going to disintermediate central banking because that was evil. And we can't trust governments with our money or central banks with our money. And so now Satoshi Nakamoto has given us this tool where we can now free ourselves from the tyranny of the man and the government, and we can now have sound money. And that's really where things went off the rails, because then it became an exercise in trying to do everything to try and create a system and morph Satoshi's Bitcoin into a system that was resistant to the man. And that's when this idea of decentralization took on a new note, where it was about trying to stop government control. Whereas when you actually understand Satoshi's Bitcoin, it was about fitting in with the regulatory structures. And so all this time now, there's been blockchain after blockchain and crypto after crypto, all trying to replace and recreate what Satoshi Nakamoto created already. And of course, with exchanges, whose entire business model, it relies on there being millions of tokens, that is really what the activity has been. Yes, of course, we've got Solana and we've got Ethereum and there's smart contracts and there's all these wonderful novel ideas that people are trying to realize, but can't get right because only Satoshi Nakamoto figured it out. Yet we've abandoned Satoshi Nakamoto's Bitcoin in favor of BTC, which is a government-resistant sound money. And so I don't believe there's been any adoption. If you can show me where there is a service that people are using on a day-to-day basis that is better than existing tech that's out there and that's adding value to people's lives, sure, there we have adoption. But at the moment, I can tell you after 15 years or whatever it's been of Bitcoin, there's no adoption. I can at least say for Centbee, people on Centbee are using Centbee to be able to buy things and send money to cross-border. I mean, that's adoption, but speculating on tokens, that's not adoption. That's just a casino. It's a speculative mindset, and it's a kind of hope that we will all get rich by investing in these new technologies. So I'm very pessimistic and saddened by this whole advent of crypto and especially this ideology of anarchy, trying to build technology that's government resistant. I can tell you now, that'll never happen. Satoshi knew that. That's why he made Bitcoin not government resistant. But all these cryptos you're trying, this decentralization thing, are going to fail.
Lorien, I know you're very pro-regulation. You think it is needed in this space. Do you not think that by having the regulation, it's endorsing for you, I would say, for your opinion, all the wrong things? So it's just almost fueling this idea of, cryptocurrency. It's giving legitimacy. Let me put it that way. More legitimacy to cryptocurrency markets. And then it's moving even further away from Satoshi's vision.
No, Satoshi's vision was all about regulation. That's why he built a system that had proof of work to make it accountable. Those miners are accountable to law enforcement. They're too big to hide. So regulation, look, is a fact of life. Now, I agree to your point about, do I think that regulation might be bad in some cases? Yes, because by giving a crypto exchange a license, you kind of make people think, oh, this is legit. This is real. It's been licensed. It's now a fact of life. It's a real thing. I need to get in here. I'm safe. You see, that's what regulation does. When you're regulated and licensed, people think, oh, you're safe. And also remember, it's not just exchanges, it's also dodgy companies. There've been lots of dodgy companies that are out there, and they can get licensed, regulated, and they can fail. So I don't think that regulation solves the problem, but the fact of life is that we have regulations. And when we're dealing with financial services, there are regulations that exist. And if we want to reap the benefits of having a blockchain that can lower the costs of payments and do all the wonderful things we want to do, we have to obey the regulations. We have to follow the rules because those exist. Yes, I'm not a fan of regulation per se, because, sometimes regulations hobble things and that. But if you have them, then you have to follow them. Otherwise, you're going to be operating outside of that regulatory environment. And that means users won't be able to use you because they're going to think this is sketchy and dodgy and I don't want to go there. There are very well-established rules around payments. You have to know your customer. You have to apply limits. You have to be able to freeze funds. You have to be able to trace those payments. You have to be able to seize those payments. And so if we want people to use Bitcoin, then you have to be able to seize it, trace it, confiscate it, all the things that crypto and Bitcoin BTC are trying to build against. So I want to see a world where people benefit from Satoshi's creation, that benefit from the low-cost payments. And Satoshi wanted that world too. That's why when he built Bitcoin, he made it regulatory compliant. It is traceable. It is seizable and confiscatable. Let me tell you how Bitcoin is seizable and confiscatable, because people think it's not. That's false. Miners are big. And if a government says these coins are from the proceeds of crime, this is terrorist financing or money laundering, all they need to do, global court order, go to the very few miners that are out there, there's not a lot, and say, if you do not freeze those funds, if you process those transactions, we're going to shut you down. And Satoshi even described that. He said that if you're honest as a miner, you'll make money. If you're dishonest, you're going to lose money. How? You're going to get shut down. And that's what mining was all about. Do you know that Bitcoin is not protected by technology and secured by processing? It's secured by the miners not wanting to get shut down and arrested. Bitcoin is protected by the law. It's not protected by technology. Mining is to make sure that whoever is running this network is accountable to law enforcement. You don't hear this, right? You just hear, no, Bitcoin is technology, processing power, and it's like unstoppable, unconfiscatable. Satoshi Nakamoto wanted Bitcoin to be used. He wanted it to change the world. He wanted to reduce the costs of payments. He didn't want to undermine central banks. That's a myth that crept in. He didn't want to create a government-resistant system. He wanted a system that can help people, and he could understand what it took to build a regulatory compliance system. That's why Bitcoin is transparent. That's why it's traceable and seizable and confiscatable. So regulation is a fact of life, like tax. You got to pay it. You might not like it, but you got to pay it. If there are rules around payments and you got to do all these checks and things, you got to do it. And Satoshi wasn't an anarchist. He knew that. That's why when you understand Bitcoin, you can see it plain as day. But most people don't understand that.